Cell phones, and note that this meeting is being taped by FCTV. If there's any private party recording this hearing, please step up to the podium to request permission. And I'll introduce the board. On my far right is Mark Finneran. To his left is Scott Peterson. On my closest right is Frank Duffy, the clerk. I'm Suzanne Murphy, the chair. To my left is James Morse, the vice chair. To his left is Tony Pertucci, an associate, and Nick Haney on the left. And we have Noreen Stockman as our zoning administrator and Ashley DeMello, the office assistant. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town zoning bylaws and reviewing and voting on this application. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public and to allow a full and fair discussion of the project prior to the closing of the hearing process and reaching a decision. Number one, to begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement for the hearing and read pertinent information from the file. Number two, the applicant or the applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation, but their time may be extended by a vote of the board. Three, the board will then question the applicant. And four, then the public will be invited to comment. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes and be strictly related to the proposal. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair and should come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, and please speak into the microphone. It will amplify your voice and record audio for FCTV viewers. We also have a part right now where if anyone wants to make a public comment about anything that's not on our agenda, you're welcome to come up to the podium. We don't comment on what you say, but you're welcome to come up. Does anybody have a comment? So we're all set, so we'll move right into the agenda. We're going to go out of order a little bit. We're going to take 07424 Fantasia out of order. We have, do you have the verbiage?
Yes.
I think I can just make the motion. I don't think we need to.
Yeah, I don't know what date we have, though. They've requested a continuance because of the unavailability of counsel.
And what's the date to continue to? Oh, we don't know, it's withdraw. It's a withdrawal without prejudice.
Oh, it's going to be withdraw without prejudice? Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow withdrawal without prejudice on hearing 07424.
Second?
There's a second, and all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. So now we'll move up to 0 Melrose.
I have a letter to read.
Yeah. Kevin, before you begin, we have a letter to be read in.
We have a letter that we received today from from a gentleman who's in a butter but is unable to be here tonight, requesting it be read. Mark S. Harmson. Dear members of the Board of the Zoning Appeals, we own the property at 4 Melrose Avenue, Falmouth Heights, which abuts Lot 8. Our family has summered in Falmouth Heights for in excess of 140 years, 120 of those years on Melrose Avenue. We have great love for the Heights in the town of Falmouth. With that comes a love and respect for the character and charm of the Heights and its architecture. We submitted a letter on the 25th of July with a number of concerns, and they still stand, but we have some additional concerns resulting from that hearing. We have submitted a second letter in opposition to the proposal as currently drafted, but wanted to emphasize these particular points. One, an item of concern discussed at the July 25th hearing centered around whether this was a change of use of the property. It certainly seems that taking down a garage and proposing a 3-story single-family residence appears to be a substantial change of use. Two, we understand that under existing law, to build a home of this type requires a minimum lot size of 7,200 square feet. The applicant's lot is substantially under that requirement at 3,750 square feet. We feel it would be a dangerous precedent to grant permission to build a residence on such a small lot. Doing so would open up a Pandora's box of other applicants wanting to take similar action, which would undermine minimum lot size requirements. Three, parking continues to be a concern. When the applicant applied to build their home at 345 Grand Avenue, it is our understanding that they used as an argument to support permit approval that the lot at 8 Melrose would be used for parking. In fact, the applicant currently does use the Melrose lot for parking for their Grand Avenue home. If a home is built on 8 Melrose and more parking is allocated, how does that math add up to support parking for 2 locations? If the applicant were only applying to rebuild a garage, our concerns would be far fewer. Given the size and scope of this proposal, we continue to be opposed to this application as currently drafted. Many of our neighbors on Melrose Avenue share the same concerns. Thank you for the commitment of time and energy you devoted to good government, and we appreciate your consideration of our concerns. Respectfully submitted, Mark S. Harmson. That's it.
Thank you, Frank. Go ahead, Kev.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Flower. I'm before you representing Larry and Valerie Sullivan, who reside at 345 Grand Avenue and are the owners of this property, 0 Melrose Avenue. They are, as you know, seeking permission to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming structures. So it's been a little bit of time since we were here. We did our initial presentation. We had to make some changes to the plans, and then we had to make some subsequent changes to the plans based on some feedback from the Board of Health. So it's been a little bit. So I want to take a moment to review some of the basic information, to address some of the correspondence that's been received, to review the minor changes to the plan, and also to address some of the questions previously raised by this board. So as a recap, this property, 0 Melrose, is 3,711 square feet. It's in the RC zoning district. Presently, there's a standalone 2-car garage. While that garage is conforming to setback and lot coverage requirements, the use itself is non-conforming as it is an accessory structure without a primary use. The applicants have proposed to raise the existing garage and to replace with a single-family residence, which will be a 2-car garage on the first floor with a single-bedroom home on the second floor. The footprint of this proposal is 591 square feet, which is less than 16% of lot coverage by structure. The ridge height of this proposal is 32 feet, 4 1/4 inch. This will require a special permit under 240-10.2A. To change the existing non-conforming use to a conforming use, which is a single-family dwelling, which is a use that is allowed by right within the residential C zoning district. The proposed structure will comply and conform with all setback and lot coverage requirements, and the board must determine whether or not the change from a non-conforming use to a conforming use allowed by right is substantially more detrimental than what exists. This proposal does not create any new dimensional nonconformities, does not impair public views and vistas, and does reasonably conform to the average dimensions in the neighborhood. Since our last meeting, we revised the site plan to provide additional setback to retaining walls and also to revise the septic based on recommendations from the health department. The architectural plans were slightly altered in connection with that change to the septic plans, with the back portion of the house being cantilevered on pre-stressed concrete piers. I'd like to address some of the correspondence, particularly Mr. Ramson's letter that came in. That correspondence argues that the garage must be used for 345 Grand Avenue. However, 345 Grand Ave is a completely separate matter. That property has the parking spaces that are required by the bylaw. There are more than 2 spaces on that site, and there's nothing in that permit that requires the use of this property. In fact, this property, this proposal has 4 parking spaces. Only 2 are required. There's 2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway. The letter comments that it would be a bad precedent to allow a residence on such a small lot. However, within this immediate area, there's at least 10 homes on similar or even smaller lots. 6 homes are on smaller lots. Last time, there was a question presented over the age of the garage and whether or not it was a legally non-conforming structure. The age of the garage is difficult to conclusively prove. There's no records at the town. And as we discussed previously, it's visible in aerial photographs going back to 1950, but can't go much further than that. I did speak with the building commissioner. His opinion was that this was a turn of century construction. The property was never owned in common ownership with any abutting parcels, but it was owned by the owner of the property across Melrose at 5. 5 Melrose was constructed in 1900 per their assessor's records, as was 3 Melrose. 4 Melrose was constructed in 1920, as was 357 and 361 Grand Ave. All houses on this street were built in 1920 or before. The garage served the house built in 1900 and appears to have been built at the same time. However, more importantly, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 7, which specifically deals with nonconforming structures, was amended in 2016. Chapter 184 of the Acts of 2016, which was specifically entitled An Act Relative to Nonconforming Structures, and took effect November 2nd, 2016, amended Section 7 of the Zoning Act. clarifying the status of structures that were constructed in violation of zoning ordinances or bylaws. Pursuant to that amendment, non-conforming structures that violated zoning laws at the time of the structure's establishment are deemed to be lawful, pre-existing non-conforming structures if no enforcement is taken within 10 years. And if no enforcement is taken within 10 years, they are therefore eligible to make changes and alterations pursuant to what's called the Section 6 finding, as well as any local ordinance or bylaw regarding non-conforming structures. Section 2 of that act specifically states that this change is applicable regardless of whether the structure was erected prior or after to that effective date. Our bylaw itself states that structures that qualify under Massachusetts General Laws, Section 7, which this does, are considered non-conforming and entitled to treatment as such in this section. Based on that, establishing the exact age of this structure is not necessarily relevant because of the change in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 7, and the wording of our own bylaw. I went over the details of this last time. Not much has changed. I believe that this project represents a significant improvement over the existing conditions, which is a dilapidated, falling down garage that's non-conforming as to use, with a functional, attractive dwelling that is a by right use within the zoning district. This will not create any new dimensional nonconformities, eliminates non-conforming uses, and I believe this meets all the requirements of 240-10.2A and 240-12.1E. I hope that I've addressed the questions raised at the last hearing. I'd be glad to address any questions the board may have at this time. Otherwise, I would ask that you grant the special permit.
Who wants to start off? Scott, how about you? Want to start?
Okay, well, Kevin, Attorney Clower, thank you for the update. I really only have one major issue here, and that's on the lot size. I mean, as was stated in the abutters, 3 points, that the lot size has to be in our bylaws, obviously, at 7,200 square feet. This wasn't a primary residence, this is a garage, and we're at 3,711 square feet. So I guess I appreciate Section 6 and the Mass General Laws that you just cited, but that's where I'm hung up, that this lot is too small, and also that this utilization of the garage was not a primary residence, of which I could understand under the bylaws that you could potentially change for all those reasons. But being a garage and being only 3,700 square feet, I have a problem with that.
Understood, Mr. Peterson. I think that, looking at this in context is important. This is, we have many lots of similar or smaller sizes within this district, within this neighborhood, and we have currently a non-conforming use. The use is entirely non-conforming, whereas the by right use of a single-family residence is conforming. If there was nothing on this lot today, I would agree with your assessment that we could not construct a single-family residence. But the fact is, there is a non-conforming structure. It's a non-conforming as to use. It is conforming as to setbacks. The bylaw allows you to change that if it's found that it's not substantially more detrimental.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mark, you have anything?
No. This lot exists as it was laid out in 1871 by Goodwin et al. There are many other lots smaller in the Heights, for sure, certainly plenty right around that size. My house in the Heights was built in 1930, and as I said when you were here before, the construction of that garage is 20 or 30 years older than that, which would make it before 1926, when zoning was first established in this town. So I see no reason why you can't do what you propose.
Frank?
Well, I share Mr. Peterson's concern about the lot size, and if you were an empty lot, you clearly could not have gotten a building permit for this. But in your presentation, Mr. Clower, you talked about that whether or not this is a pre-existing non-conforming use, but you kind of went pretty fast through it. And that's, I think, for me, the most important question here. I'd like you to kind of go through it a little bit slower. And you also mentioned that, I think you quoted Chapter 48, Section 7, as saying there was an amendment to the zoning Enabling Act, which said that anything that's illegal, or not illegal, but doesn't conform to zoning, if there's no enforcement within 10 years, it becomes a lawful pre-existing non-conforming structure. I thought that language was it becomes a lawful non-conforming structure. I don't recall the words pre-existing being in there. And if you could read it.
So what Chapter 184 of the Acts of 2016 says is, if real property has been improved by the erection or alteration of one or more structures, and the structures or alterations have been in existence for a period of at least 10 years, and no notice of an action, suit, or proceeding as to an alleged violation of this chapter, or of an ordinance or bylaw adopted under this chapter, has been recorded in the registry of deeds for the county or district in which the real estate is located, or in the case of registered land, has been filed in the registry district in which the land is located within a period of 10 years from the date the structures were erected, then the structures shall be deemed for zoning purposes to be legally non-conforming structures subject to Section 6 and any local ordinance or bylaw relating to non-conforming structures. That's
So
the
the words
exact...
pre-existing are not in there. And
No, but it does say that it's subject to the provisions of Section 6, which allow for alteration to non-conforming structures.
But, yeah, and this is a non-conforming structure, that's all it is. It's not a pre-existing non-conforming structure.
So I don't necessarily agree with the distinction here, Mr. Duffy. I think that it specifically says it's subject to the provisions of Section 6 and any local ordinance relative to non-conforming structures, which allow for alterations to those or uses, allowing alterations to non-conforming structures.
But our local
I have-
bylaw says that you have to be pre-existing non-conforming, and you're not.
I think, well, last time we were caught up on the word lawfully pre-existing, now we're caught up on the word pre-existing. I mean, it clearly is pre-existing. It's existed since relatively the turn of the century. I have a section of the Mass Zoning Manual that I'd be happy to submit. That says specifically, Chapter 184 of the Acts of 2016, an act relative to non-conforming structures, took effect on November 2nd, amending Section 7 and clarifying the status of structures constructed in violation of a zoning ordinance or bylaw, special permit, or variance. Under the newly amended Section 7, if no enforcement action against such structures has been filed for 10 years since the erection of the structure, the Act now deems such structures legally conforming and eligible to make changes and alterations pursuant to a Section 6 finding. So I'd be happy to submit that section of the Mass Zoning Manual. So I think that based on that change in 2016, if something has existed for more than 10 years, that it's deemed to be lawfully non-conforming, and therefore eligible to make alterations subject to our Section 240-10.2A 4 or Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6.
You mentioned in your presentation that the building commissioner opined that this was turn of the century. Did he give you any more additional information?
He did not. You know, he and I spoke about it at length. He felt confident that it was built approximately 1900. He wouldn't give me something in writing, understandably, because it's hard to ascertain that. We know that everything else on that street was built in 1920 or before, and that this garage served the house directly across the street from it, which was built in 1900.
Run that past me again.
So every house on this street was built in either between 1900 and 1920. This garage was owned by the owner of the property directly across Melrose Avenue, not abutting, but directly across Melrose Avenue. And that house was built in 1900.
Okay. That's all the information you have.
That's the information we have, and I feel like that, in connection with the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 7, and the wording of our own bylaw, provides the board with more than enough to be able to make this, make a finding for an alteration to the non-conforming use here.
All right. Yep.
Chip?
Attorney Clower, you submitted 33 properties comparable. It's referenced again this evening with 6 or smaller in terms of lot coverage. Are all of those currently used for residential purposes, residential dwellings?
Yes.
None of them are just a standalone garage?
As far as I'm aware, because I wouldn't have been able to do the gross building area calculations if it was only a garage.
You're applying under 240-10.2. 2, or I should say the standards, can you reconcile for me paragraph 2, structures in existence as of January 1, 1970, any residential structure in existence as of January 1, 1970, not protected by the sections of Article 10, will be deemed to be conforming to the dimensional requirements of these bylaws, but any alterations, reconstruction, extension, or structural change must conform to the current bylaw dimensional requirements? Page 111.
You got different pagination, Jim. So 2A,
240, 10.2A, sub 2. Structures in existence as of January 1, 1970.
are we assuming Article 10 refers to Mass General laws rather than, not, well, Article 10, this section, 10.1, 10.1A2, says non-complying structures 10 years or older. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 7, a structure which has not been in compliance with this chapter or with the conditions set forth in any special permit for a period of 10 years or more from the commencement of the violation may not be the subject of any enforcement action. Then it goes on to say structures which qualify under General Law, Chapter 48, Section 7, are considered to be non-conforming structures or are entitled to treatment as such as provided in this section. So I think that's how you, relative to what you referred to as 10.2A, 10.22, that says any residential structure not protected by the sections of this Article 10. I believe that we are protected by the provisions of this Article 10.
All right. Taking a different strain on the intent of the bylaw concerning this issue, but I know that some other people are going to have questions about the retaining wall. I'll let them, additional board members ask those. Just for fairness to you and the applicant, I'm very much hung up about the lot size, sharing the similar reservations that Mr. Peterson has, so. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Tony.
Attorney Clower, assuming that you are correct and this can go forward under 10.2A, the standards for that, I guess I have to question. I'm going to get to the wall in a second, but the standards under that are basically, as you know, does it reasonably conform to the average dimensions found in the neighborhood? It doesn't, either in the house size or in the lot size, as Mr. Peterson pointed out. And in fact, it is less than 50% of the average size lot on Melrose and on Tower. The house itself is less than half the size of the other houses, so it doesn't really fit the average dimensions found in the neighborhood. The visual character, which is section 12.1 ED, the visual character doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't appear to fit in that neighborhood well. And so I have to wonder if, in fact, that if this goes forward, this is not more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. And let me just touch upon the retaining wall in the back. When you first brought this forward, the retaining wall was on the property line, and the concern was, how are you going to build it? And without interfering with the neighbor behind. You've moved it in. Is it, and I can't see a measure, there's no measurement between the back retaining wall, side retaining wall, and the rear lot. Is it in far enough? So I can't tell how far it is. Is it far enough?
It's in about 2 feet, and I spoke with the contractor, and the way it would be built is built from the inside and then backfilled in. But
Oh, that is sufficient? All right. So let me just go back to those questions I asked about substantially detrimental, more detrimental to the neighborhood. Why is it not more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood? Half the lot size, it's 50% of the average lot size. The house is less than 50% of the average house size. The style of it doesn't fit.
I've never had someone complain about the house being too small relative to average lot size.
Complaining about it, I'm simply bringing it up. I mean,
So, no, the point's taken, certainly, Mr. Petrucci. So, looking at the neighborhood, we did prepare a lot comparison worksheet. There are a number of houses within what we typically use as a 300-foot radius. As I mentioned, there's 10 lots that are the same or lesser size. This would be a small footprint, because we're not going to 31% lot coverage, or 36% lot coverage, or 40% lot coverage, like many of those structures are. We're keeping it below the 20% lot coverage. It's at 15.93%, which is only slightly larger than what's there today. So, and it meets all setback and lot coverage requirements, which is something most houses in the Heights don't do. So I think that it is, the site is adequate in terms of size for the proposed use. It is, you know, this is conforming, and not out of line with the neighborhood.
But I'm sorry, am I interrupting you? I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
No.
We'll come
It
back.
says in 12.1 ED, impact on the neighborhood visual character, including views and vistas. First of all, the visual character is very different than what's there. It doesn't matter if the house is small, but it's the visual character. The vistas and views, well, it's definitely going to affect somebody's vista and view. Then we have the roof deck behind that's going to be towering over the backyard of the house behind it. So I think that there is the
There's
potential.
I do want to point out, there's been no comment whatsoever from the people directly abutting to the rear. I
just bring it up because the board has to consider these things.
No, I
I want to
understand.
from the record, that's all. I think that this is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood as it's designed at the moment, and I'll end with that.
So I think most of the houses in this area are somewhere between the ones I've worked on. Typically, we're looking somewhere between 25 and 35 feet for height. Typically 2.5 stories, especially in this part of the Heights. I think that what we're proposing is it's 2.5 stories. It's less than 35 feet. It is within the confines of the lot entirely, within the lot coverage setbacks, within the side yard setbacks. And I think that it is not at all out of character. It's new construction, in the sense that what we have here is largely older homes, but we have a lot of homes that are changing over and being redone. The house directly abutting this at 10 Melrose, you approved a special permit for 4 weeks ago, and that's going from 26 feet to 34 feet, with pretty significant massing as well. And I'm glad you approved that. I think you should have, because I represented them. But I think that you can't say, have that and then say that this is out of character, when what we're proposing here is less in terms of lot coverage by structure, less in terms of lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking. It is, if anything, small for the neighborhood relative to its size. But I've never seen that be a concern that the board has risen as something being too small for the neighborhood.
I'm just reading the bylaw, that's all.
So I did go through, I can enumerate those. I do believe it's adequate in terms of size for the reasons I mentioned. The site is suitable for the proposed use. It's a proposed single-family residence in a zone that allows it as a by right matter, with many homes of similar sizes on similarly sized lots. Traffic flow and safety, there's little impact. We're talking about 2 cars being parked here potentially. The addition of a 1-bedroom home in an already densely developed neighborhood with 4 parking spaces provided. The neighborhood visual character, in my opinion, is largely unaffected. We have various architectural styles. This is not out of place. It's new construction, but it's not modern design. It's not a flat roof. It's not something that would be out of place. And this is an area that's already dense with existing dwellings, many of which have been before this board. There's no effect on sewage disposal. The source of water is taken care of. The drainage is improved. We're proposing a new Title V system to address wastewater. It's served by municipal water. The drainage will be improved with the addition of the dry wells. Utilities and other public services are unaffected. I think we can check off the boxes of 12.1E, but there has to be buy-in from the board to do that.
Thank you.
Nick, you have any questions? No. All right, go ahead.
Oh, no, actually, Mr. Clower answered my questions in his presentation, so I'll pass on asking the same question over again.
Did you want me to go through I started going through the Chapter 40A, Section 7 stuff.
No,
Are you satisfied?
my question related to Section 240-12E and the criteria for a special permit, and you really addressed them in response to Mr. Petrucci's questions.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'd just like to add, when Falmouth Heights was originally laid out in 1871, most of the lots, except for the ones on the water, were relatively the size of this one. The larger lots in the neighborhood are because they were purchased and merged. I mean, this is an original buildable house lot. And one of the many conveyances of the deed was in 1899, and I suggest that the building commissioner's guess of 1900 being the date of construction would be pretty accurate.
You're all set, Mark?
That's it.
I have a question about the parking from the 345 grand. Was that in the decision?
No.
It was just brought up by the applicant?
You know, when people were asking, where can you park construction vehicles, where can you do this? It was mentioned that that this lot was available, but it's not a condition that this be reserved for that. There is adequate parking on 345 Grand Ave, and there's nothing in the decision relating to the use of this property for
Because
parking
it
for
is
that lot.
utilized for parking. Several abutters have told us.
No, Mr.
there's
Sullivan
cars
parks his
there.
work truck there periodically, but that's
That's it.
what he tells me.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions before we go to the public? Anybody good up here?
Ms. Murphy, I would note just that we're actually improving the parking too, because we're going to go, right now it's really 2 spots there. We're going to be going to 4 spots, and we have a 1-bedroom home proposed.
So you'll still have room for the other 2 guys from... Okay, anybody from the public want to comment on this? Quiet group. All right, so what do you want to do up here?
We'll wait for Attorney Clower to come. I mean, for me, I just would like to see everything that you had mentioned for the Mass General laws. I just haven't read all of
I'm
that.
happy to submit,
I can't
all of that.
get my arms around it without seeing the verbiage.
I would like to see that, too.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time.
There's a map of the original layout, if you notice. Only the lots on the water are.
Ms. Murphy, if I can make a suggestion?
Is that map on the record?
It should be in the record.
Well, did you submit this, Mr. Clower?
I did not.
No, that's mine.
Oh, okay.
If I can make a suggestion, Ms. Murphy. I have handouts of the Chapter 48, Section 7 stuff with me. I don't expect me to hand it to you and you to read it now, of course. But rather than handing it to you now, what I'd like to do, what I'd propose is, if we could continue this hearing, I can submit correspondence synthesizing that information, provide you with both the Chapter 186 of the Acts of 2016, the revised Chapter 48, Section 7, and any other information that I think might be helpful to you in making this decision in a correspondence.
I would like that, because this is my big issue right here that he's talking about.
Okay. We're going to have to punt. Sorry. We're just so jammed.
I understand.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. So there's nothing from the public, so can I have a motion?
What would we have for a date?
For them to continue, before we continue.
Thought that's what he just asked.
December 12th.
Didn't he just ask to continue?
I did, but I was looking for a date.
He is agreeable to it.
December 12th, I'd have to have it in. I can do that.
What was that? Got one? Okay. Can I have a motion up here?
Move to continue with the assent of the applicant to December the 12th.
Second?
We have a motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. I know this is a complicated one, so I appreciate you taking the time to think it through and be diligent about it. Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to get the case needed.
All right, next we have Savinor of 35 Nemasket.
It's a continuation, you're right.
Mark, do you have another copy of that?
I have 2 different ones. That's the original
Have one?
18 set.
Can I have like a copy just to put in the file?
Yeah. I actually have,
I just think we should have it in there.
and this is that section blown up. You might want to take that, too. It's
All
certainly
right, great,
easier to
thanks.
look at.
Thanks, man.
Certainly.
Did we read this? Did we open this?
I don't think we even opened it, did we?
It's a continuation, so that
Because of the
suggests to me
stake.
that we did, but...
There was a staking
It was a
issue,
stake. I
so
don't think we did.
well, then fine.
Yeah.
I hope it's not perceived as rude. I'm going to grab a sip of water while you start reading that stuff, Frank.
Go away. Don't do it. Murphy's Law, it'll be the last one.
It's going to be the last one, I think. No, here it is. Okay, this is Appeal 084-24. Amanda M. and Ronald D. Savinor trustees have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4, and also 246.6B of the Code of Falmouth, that's the zoning bylaw, to remove the existing deck and construct an attached three-car garage, increasing lot coverage by structure. Property is located at 35 Nemasket Road, West Falmouth. Zoning district is RB. Again, they're asking for a special permit under 240-10.2A, 240-11.3A, and 246.6B to remove a deck and construct a three-car garage, increasing lot coverage by structure. The property is currently a single-family house, four-bedroom, 4,610 square feet. It will be a single-family house with four bedrooms, but the square footage will be increased to 4,798 square feet. The lot is 19,734 square feet, which is 0.45 of an acre, and in a district which requires a minimum of 40,000 square feet. The street frontage, by my calculation, is 66 feet, where in a district where 100 square feet is required, which is a nonconformity. Nemasket Road is a private road as it passes by this property. Lot coverage by structure is currently 23.4%. It will be increased to 24.7% in a district where 20% is the allowed limit, 25% by special permit. The neighborhood average of lot coverage per the worksheet submitted is 14.67%. Lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving is 42.3% and will not be increased. The limit is 40% needing, so that's a nonconformity right there. The setbacks are conforming to the zoning bylaw. I don't know what the height of the building is currently. I didn't see that on the plans, but it'll be 44 feet when finished. We have a referral from engineering. They ask us to consider the stormwater runoff, that it be contained on the subject property, and also to impose a condition adhering to the soil and erosion conditions. The Board of Health has no issues that the septic system is suitable for 5 bedrooms when there are 4 there. Conservation has passed. Water suggests that there be an upgrade to a 1-inch service. Building has the comment that this must remain a single-family dwelling. Planning Board has no issues, and that takes care of the notes.
Go ahead, Kev.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Clower, and I am representing Ron and Amanda Savinor, the owners of 35 Nemasket Road. They are seeking permission to alter the existing non-conforming dwelling by the construction of an attached three-car garage with habitable space above. 35 Nemasket is located just south of Old Silver Beach. The lot is just shy of 20,000 square feet. It's 19,734, and it is in the RB zoning district. Presently, there's a 4-bedroom, single-family dwelling. The septic there is designed for 5. The total footprint is 4,610 square feet, of which almost 1,800 square feet is actually pool and decking. The lot coverage by structure currently is 23.4%. This conforms to setback requirements, but is non-conforming to lot coverage by structure, being 23.4, where 20 is allowed by right, and up to 25 by special permit. And as to lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking, being 42.3%, where 40 is allowed. The applicant's requesting permission to construct an attached 3-car garage with habitable space on the 2nd floor. This is not to be used as an accessory dwelling. That is not their intent by any stretch of the imagination. It is simply additional space, overflow space for adult children, is how it was put to me. The proposed garage requires a special permit pursuant to 240-10.2A in order to alter the non-conforming structure. It requires one under 240-11.3A4 for lot coverage by structure above 20%, and also under 6.6B for garage space for more than 2 vehicles. Under 240-10.2A, pre-existing non-conforming structures may be changed by special permit, provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what exists. This board's asked to consider the standards of 240-12.1E and whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs the views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Under 11.3A4, lot coverage by structure may exceed 20% by special permit, up to 25%, and the board is in that case asked to consider the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, the effects of shadow, the effects of impacts on views and vistas from public ways, the effects of nitrogen on coastal abatements. We did submit the lot comparison worksheet. This is not out of line with surrounding properties. The raw numbers, I think, are somewhat misleading. As noted, on the ground, decking is approximately 1,200 square feet, and the pool is almost 600 square feet. So we're at about 1,800 square feet that has absolutely no bearing on the size and height of the structure. Without that incorporated, it would be just about 21.5%. There's no increase in the ridge height. We're maintaining the existing ridge height of 22 feet. Ms. Duffy, you said 44. That's 44 above NGVD. That's 22 above grade. So this should have little to no impact on views and vistas or shadows. And though the office meets the definition of a bedroom, the septic is designed for 5, as noted within the health referral. Section 246.6B, which allows for garage space for more than 2 vehicles, doesn't actually set forth any standards for the board's consideration. So we have to look to 240.12.1E, which governs all special permit decisions. So this proposal results in lot coverage by structure of 24.3%, which again is allowable by special permit, and with the issuance of a special permit, eliminates that as a nonconformity. The lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking is improved. It's lowered from 42.3 to 42.1%. It's not a huge improvement, but it is an improvement. The ridge height will remain conforming at 22 feet. The finished space will include 1 additional office, which again, not intended as a separate accessory dwelling, will lack cooking facilities, and the applicants would welcome a condition to that effect in the decision. So the threshold question is, does the proposed use have adverse effects which overbalance the beneficial effects to the neighborhood and the town? This lot is more than adequate in size. It doesn't change the nature of the proposed use. It remains a single-family dwelling, and it increases the owner's utilization of the property. There's no impact on traffic flow or safety, and it remains in line with the neighborhood character. It doesn't affect public services. There's no new nonconformities created. The existing nonconformity as to lot coverage by structure is eliminated with the issuance of a special permit, and improved as to lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking. I can't see any adverse effects here, and certainly none that would overbalance the benefits. I believe this meets all the requirements of 240.10.2A4, 246.6B, 240.11.3A4, and 240.12.1E. I would ask that the board grant the special permit, but of course be happy to address any questions that you might have at this time.
Let's start down this end today. Nick, you have any questions?
No, not right now.
Come up with any, let me know. Tony, you want to start off?
Sure. I find that it fits in well. I don't know where you lost 16 or 18 square feet to get the total coverage down, but you did. So I think it fits well.
They're removing portions of pavement to bring down that lot coverage.
Path, I think.
Is that the path?
The
Yeah.
path?
Yeah, they're removing a portion of the path, and they're removing portions of the pavement. It says portion of existing pavement to be removed here and here, so that's where it's coming out. It's not a ton.
This is one of those situations where it's not substantially detrimental to the community.
Eye of the beholder. But yes, I agree in this case.
Good answer. Jim, do you have anything?
No, it's a nice complex. Can I just confirm that there were no letters of concern or objection on the file, Mr. Duffy?
I did not note any, and no.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Frank, do you have any questions?
Mr. Clower, would you confirm the height, the existing height, and what it's going to, what the final product is going to be height-wise?
I can show you right here. So my notes are in the way. So this matches the existing ridge height, which is 22 feet. So this is intended to match that existing ridge.
So it's 22, and it's going to stay 22?
Correct.
Okay. That's it.
Attorney Carr, could you go back to that slide and just show the north elevation? So that's the egress? Okay.
Yes.
So you have the egress there?
Yep.
And just again, confirm storage and office space only?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mark?
No, if I had a Porsche and a Corvette or whatever else he had, I'd want to put them in a garage too. And nobody's going to see this anyhow.
I thought the design here was, given the lot, I thought it's, it kind of hides a lot of the what would otherwise be bulking. It's designed very well for the site.
It's very well laid out.
Yeah.
You all set, Mark?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's a good project. Public? Yeah, everybody's all set. Nick, do you have anything before I go to the public? No. Anybody from the public want to comment on this? You're bringing us good luck, Kev.
I
All
hear that
right.
a lot.
No one from the public?
Motion to close.
I'll second. Any further discussion before we close? All those in favor of closing? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Move to approve with conditions, Madam Chairman.
I'll second. Let's do findings, Frank.
Okay, the property is at 35 Nemasket Road, West Falmouth. The zoning district is RB. This is an application for special permit under section 240-10.2A, 240-11.3A, and 246.6B to remove a deck and construct a three-car garage, increasing lot coverage by structure. Currently a single-family residence, 4 bedrooms, 4,610 square feet. The final project will be a single-family residence, 4 bedrooms, 4,098 square feet. The lot is undersized lot at 19,734
I'm sorry, Mr.
square
Duffy,
feet.
it's 4,876. I just want to,
4,000 what?
876.
For this finished product?
Yes.
Okay, I stand corrected. The lot size is 19,734 square feet in a district requiring 40,000. Frontage is 66 feet in a district requiring 100. That's non-conforming. Nemasket Road is a private right-of-way. The lot coverage by structure is currently 23.4%. It will be increased to 24.7%. You need a special permit to exceed 20%. The lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving is currently 42.3%. It will be decreased to 42.1%. It remains non-conforming, but it's beyond our jurisdiction to do anything about that. There are no new nonconformities noted. Engineering has asked that we consider stormwater runoff and soil erosion in our conditions. Board of Health has no issue with the septic system. Conservation has no issues. Water Department suggests an upgrade to 1-inch service. The Building Department has wants to make sure that this remains a single-family house, and the space above the new garage will not be used as a separate residence. And that Mr. Clower has indicated in his presentation that there's no intention to do that. The Planning Board has no comment on that. We received no letters, and there's no opposition at the public hearing. With respect to the conditions of the zoning bylaw under section 240-10.2A, which applies to nonconforming structures, we are to make a determination that the project will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, which we can do. As far as lot coverage by structure, 240-11.3A4 allows lot coverage by structure in excess of 20% up to a maximum of 25% by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. There's been suggestion here that there's no impact by shadow on any abutting property. This property does require a special permit for a garage, a three-car garage. Under section 240-6.6B, you must have a special permit for a garage with more than 2 bays on a lot of less than 30,000 square feet, which this is, so this bylaw does apply. With respect to the special permit itself, the conditions set forth in, the criteria set forth in section 240-12.1E, say we find that the site is adequate for the proposed use, it is suitable for the proposed use, no impact on traffic flow or safety. There's no impact on neighborhood visual character, views, or vistas. There's adequate septic system as referenced by the Board of Health's comments. There's adequate utilities. Does not impact affordable housing, and as I mentioned before, there's no shadow being thrown onto abutting property.
All right.
Through you, Madam Chairman, no objections at the hearing, no objections in the file.
Right.
So conditions?
Well, one thing, no dwelling over the new garage bay. That's at the request of the building commissioner.
It may not be used as a separate separate. I think the applicant wants to have it, the building commissioner doesn't want it to be a separate rental, separate apartment or accessory dwelling unit.
Not an accessory dwelling, it's
We can just go
part of the principal one.
by department. We used to follow that. It was
All right.
engineering?
No, it was health, excuse me, building.
So by the building.
I would just ask on that if it could be until and if they obtain the appropriate permits, because I don't want to prohibit them from doing it in the future. They have no intention of it, but I don't want to make it that they can't, just they would have to go through the appropriate permitting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
By right soon enough.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's coming by right.
Yeah, it's going to make any difference in
Right.
about 15 minutes.
Why don't we incorporate, if I could suggest a comment, incorporate the referral from building and just add language that unless properly permitted or allowed by right.
Okay, sounds good.
So regular conditions, work hours,
Per plans.
per plans.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought he was coming up with a condition for me.
Noreen, anything else?
We should have them certify the lot coverage and total lot coverage prior to final sign-off by building, because they
Good
are
idea, they're right up there, yeah.
the maximum.
Yep,
Did you get work hours?
yep,
Per plans, all those.
per
standard
plans,
1-inch water upgrade.
yeah.
That was suggested.
Huh?
That was suggested.
It's recommended, right? But that's in with all the town boards. Anybody come up with anything else? Noreen, good? Okay, we're all set, I think. I'll make a motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Wasn't a motion, it was a...
Thank you very
We
much.
already
We
had the
appreciate your time on this one tonight.
Next up, we have Beaman, 15 Beaman, and I'm recusing. And my vice chair will take over.
So continuation of 09024 Adams, 15 Beaman Lane, North Falmouth, requesting a special permit to allow renovations to the existing dwelling and 6 accommodation units, 5 units in the existing dwelling and 1 unit in the existing garage. For the record, I was not present at the first hearing. I will submit a Mullen affidavit, having watched it on FCTV. I'm going to put a couple disclosures on the record that I do not believe are conflicts. There are at least 2 abutters who I know through my employment as an attorney practicing in district and superior courts. I have not discussed the merits of the case with them. I was approached with an inquiry about how to make a comment at a public hearing at the zoning board, which is the information that was provided. Since the last continuation, do we have anything new in the file, Mr. Duffy?
I didn't find anything new, and I looked at it this afternoon. We do have a submission from Patty Cusack, but I believe she's present and may be testifying.
Does everyone have received a copy of that this evening?
Yes.
For the record, stamp a copy into the record. For the applicant, good evening, sir.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Seth Adams. I'm happy to go through my presentation of last meeting if it's helpful for.
I've watched the video. Do you have anything new, or do you have any?
Yeah, I did submit
to the board from the last.
I did submit a letter to the board. I have one copy, but I only have a hard copy. I don't have it to put up here. I could.
Oh,
If
that's
you want
right.
to read it and submit it, we can accept it that way, sir.
Okay.
Was it in? Oh, it's in it. It made the record.
It made the record. Okay.
Are you going to discuss the contents of that letter?
Yeah. I
Okay, fine.
plan on just kind of hitting the high points of my letter and addressing some of the commentary from the last meeting. So the letter first, after consideration with my brother, who's my partner on this property, we've decided to put some brackets around stay duration to no less than 1 month. We had talked about it potentially being shorter stays than that, but hearing some of the commentary of the board and frankly of our neighbors about management and also about traffic, we felt that this would be kind of solve a couple problems at the same time. One about communication of traffic and trying to limit or mitigate travel on Beaman Lane, in this direction, which eventually spits you out down 151 a bit more. And our plan, and it's the next bullet point, is to have signage right here and right here, right at the either side of the entrance to the parking area, to say left-hand turn only, and drive as much traffic as possible away from the neighborhood, which is, plan south. And, the same commentary would be in any lease or stay agreement that we would have, and just to do the best we can to communicate to any occupants that a left-hand turn or traveling through the neighborhood is not permitted by our rules. And one of the other pieces of commentary was about parking generally in the back here. This plan has 7 parking spaces. We plan to keep it that way. We plan to put signage up to deter restaurant, either workers or patrons, from parking in our parking lot. One, taking a spot that would be of our patron or of our tenant. And two, again, to attempt to mitigate, and I think over time this will happen, mitigate traffic coming down Beaman Lane for patrons, for workers, and increasing the neighborhood traffic. I did, to that extent, one of the conversations or piece of conversation that had happened at the last meeting was directive of that I should talk with Mr. Jarvis, who owns the restaurant across Beaman Lane, which I did do. Since that conversation, the parking of his workers has been eliminated. And we have a very clear understanding of what, this is my property. I haven't leased it to you for parking. I had asked that you communicate it to all your workers, which he was happy to do. He asked if I wanted him to be here today. I didn't want to take his time. And we talked a bit about just general traffic up and down Beaman Lane and all of the things that he has tried to do to mitigate. I think most of the conversation was around truck traffic, but I think just general traffic. He's put signs up probably right at the end of the page about, no trucks entering. There's communication that he has on all of his slips to all of his vendors to mitigate truck traffic, only come in this entrance of Beaman Lane. Frankly, our project would eliminate delivery trucks from the catering business because the catering business wouldn't be there. And it would be, like we said, occupant units for no less than a month. For Mr. Morris, who I guess you did listen, so you know the tendency that we're attempting to attract. The other question or comment that was raised by Ms. Murphy, I realized she was recused, was around the Concom. We already had an approval from Concom for the septic, but there were some stoops here that were not yet approved, but asked for, and et cetera. So I did apply to Concom. We did get a unanimous approval on that RDA last Wednesday. We don't have the actual piece of paper in the file yet, in terms of like it being signed off, but it was unanimously voted, approved. I expect that piece of paper any day now. I'm open to hear any questions that the board might have.
Mr. Chairman, we do have, just to follow up on Mr. Adams' comment, in the file I neglected to say we do have confirmation from the Conservation Commission that the project is under Conservation Commission jurisdiction, but will not fill, dredge, or alter the land, so no notice of intent is required to be filed. And that was in response to an request for determination of applicability. So they're basically square with the Conservation Commission.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mark?
No, I mean, they are doing something that's much less than they could. I mean, they could conceivably make more money on this, and they could have up to 17 units. It's a much less transient use. I'm sure it's going to be much more peaceful for the neighborhood. I really don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, again, as last time, being a private road, and I don't know how it works, but I would suggest the neighbors put a chain across and eliminate all their problems altogether. But I think he's well within his rights to build what he wants to build here.
Scott?
Oh, it's very good to hear that you heard the abutters' comments, and I appreciate you going to the short term of having monthly as opposed to anything shorter. So I appreciate that. You said you had 7 parking spaces, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And again, anything you can do to help with any sound attenuation, plantings and things like that, I think that would help on the abutters side. I know you're a little ways away, but
Yeah.
anything you can do to help out would be appreciated.
Understood. Yep.
No further questions.
Right?
Mr. Adams, you've got 7 parking spaces, which I believe is what's required by the zoning bylaw based upon the number of bedrooms, but you really think that's enough? I mean, people have guests, and they may, have entertain people. I mean,
Yeah,
how are you going to handle the fact that from time to time there may be more than 7 cars there?
Yep. as discussed in the previous meeting, I've indicated what is required on this plan. I'm not sure if you've gone to the site to see the area,
I have been there.
but it can't accommodate more than this. Here, there's 5 here and there's 2 here. This area can accommodate, in reality, 2 cars, right? That's an accurate indication of what it can accommodate. This area here, this dark gray is, by general engineering principles, can accommodate 5 cars. But this light gray area in front here and over here is all gravel.
It's clear.
It's clear. It could easily handle
5 more.
Yes. I am trying to balance hearing the neighbors' concerns about not wanting to have it be a parking lot of the restaurant or any other spot and attracting a whole bunch of extra cars and providing a few spots for potential visitors, right? So it's a balance. I hear what you're saying. If a couple people came to visit one of the occupants, there's plenty of room in that parking lot to do so.
Okay. I just want to confirm your agreement with the owner of the restaurant. Their employees will be directed to park across Route 151. Is that the plan, or someplace else?
Just not on my property.
All right. But at least when I was out there, I noticed a number of trucks, at least 2, and they're still going to make deliveries to the restaurant through Beaman Lane. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. To that end, like I said, I know because 1, I talked to him, and 2, I saw it, has attempted to put, well, not attempted, has put signage down here and has communicated on all of his vendor sheets and all of his orders on the top of the sheet that there's, a note essentially directing them to this end of Beaman Lane as opposed to the others to mitigate traffic through the neighborhood. Now, does that work 100% of the time? Probably not, but that is the restaurant's attempt, and from what I understand, has been an improvement since before that was happening.
There doesn't seem to be very much space on that plan for a truck to turn around and go back out to the intersection. How is that accomplished? Or do they have to go out through Beaman Lane and past all the houses?
It's a good question. I'm not positive how it works. I know because I've seen it a couple times. The experienced ones that have been to this restaurant a bunch of times try to back in. But yeah, it's a point well taken.
Those are my questions for the time being, Mr. Chairman.
Did you ever obtain confirmation from Historic that the Isle Small House is not under their jurisdiction?
That's my understanding.
I know that, but did you talk to Melinda Tondera?
No.
Did you talk to the chair of the Historic Commission?
No, I was waiting for them to comment on the project.
Did they comment on this? Mr. Chairman, through you, did they comment?
I don't know if I saw a referral from them.
This is the 1826 Isle Small. There was a question I had asked. It's in the, that's all.
I'm not debating that.
All right, so we don't know.
I don't believe.
They've not made any comment on it.
And
So we don't know
in
if it's-
fairness, you're bringing it up now. I remember the conversation now. I missed that note so
I just want to make sure it's not under the jurisdiction. My belief is it probably isn't, but I'm just asking the question.
total fair question.
And
I hear
you can clear that up so quickly. Yeah.
Agreed.
Now, Mr. Finneran mentioned that under Section 9.5 and 11.2B, 3, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth, and then 27,405 square feet, you could build, or you could have up to 17 guest units. Do you, and that's, I believe, if you own the property doing this particular type of use prior to February 1st, 1979, do you have any, and I'm not 100% positive on that, do you have any plans on expanding this property to accommodate 17 guest units?
If that was my intent, I'd be doing that now, because otherwise, all the money and all the effort and everything we're doing now would essentially be for naught.
Okay. We also discussed the creation of a management plan because of all that we just talked about. And that management plan now comes down to putting a sign up for your tenants that said left turn only coming out, am I correct, of their parking area?
No, I mean, that's a traffic thing. For me, in terms of management of guests and how am I going to handle all the reduction from anything less than a month to restricting the minimum stay to be a month is a major move in a management, or frankly, lack thereof, less necessity for, I mean, if you had people in every single day, 7 times, 350, you're talking, I don't know, 2,500 visits, 2,500 different turnovers, as opposed to 7 times 12 at a bare minimum. You're talking less than 100. So that really makes a big, 6.
So the management plan is to have rentals no less than 1 month,
Yes.
to put up signs that direct your tenants to go left rather than right, out the other way,
And in our agreement, rental agreement.
and in your rental agreement.
Yep.
And to attempt to keep trucks from going down Beaman the other way, or any of your vehicles.
Yeah, I mean,
The folks that own Bucatino's basically come to an agreement with you, said they won't send trucks down that way. They'll do their best to keep them going back out to 28.
yeah, and that's before I even came to the board. That's been their attempt. I brought it back up to Mr. Jarvis in our meeting, and he said, said that he's doing all he can.
So if this board were to approve your request, all of those those management programs would be part of the condition?
Yeah, I'd be happy to have that be part of the condition.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think we can't hold him responsible for the things he can't control over at Bucatino's. That'd be crazy. And if anything, he could restrict their trucks from even touching his property, making it harder for them to turn around. I believe last meeting, we requested that he had minimum parking of 7. Or we agreed that it would be better off that no one could park over there. I mean, there's plenty of room for excess parking for his tenants. I think as someone that's been a landlord and owns apartments, and I think managing that with the lease agreement, a properly structured lease, so they can't violate it, can take care of a lot of the issues with parking, turning left out of there. So.
Anyone have any follow-up?
Mr. Adams, I have a note that in the planning board referral, they say that you may need a special permit for parking spaces in the front yard, and I'm not sure if some of those parking spaces may be in the front yard, but my question is, have you been to the planning board and discussed the location of the parking, and do you require a special permit from the planning board, or what information do you have on that subject?
No, I plan to get through this process and go on to the next process.
So you haven't confirmed with the planning board that those parking spaces are in a proper approvable location?
What, are you talking about these ones here?
Well, you have 7 parking spaces.
Yeah, 5 and 2.
5 and 2.
Yep.
And the note I have from the planning board is that they may need a special permit from the planning board for parking spaces in a front yard.
Yep.
And it's, not, you don't have a traditional yard here, but just wonder what the planning board's going to say when they see this. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a construction permit that's required do this. I know that I wouldn't be able to get it without that approval, if one is required, which I don't think there's any clarity that there is one that's required.
Well, no, I agree there's not. That's why I asked you if you'd been there.
Yeah, no, because I had planned on getting through this process and then going to them if that is a necessity in order to get through this process. I guess I was unclear about that, and if I need to clarify that, okay, but.
So if this board were to approve your request here, we would be within our rights to note that the planning board has required that, and you'd have to conform to it.
100%.
Okay?
Scott?
I just wanted to confirm, all of your correspondence with the owner of the restaurant, was that just verbal?
Yes.
There's nothing, no emails saying this is specifically what you're doing or what they're going to do, is just a verbal?
It was a verbal conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment. Flower.
For the record, Kevin Clower, not speaking on behalf of any client, speaking as a friend of the Adams. To answer Mr. Petrucci's comment, it is not an historical district. It is on the list of historically significant structures, but that would only come into play if they intended to tear down the existing home. And even then, that's a 12-month demolition delay bylaw, which can be waived by the historical district.
Ma'am?
Hi, I live at 24 Beaman Lane. My name is Janet Chikarian, and I apologize, I wasn't able to be here at the previous meeting when this was discussed. I have a couple points and a question. So I don't know if any of you know this area well, but there's a lot of traffic going back and forth. There's constantly trucks coming for the restaurant, and a lot of times they're parked there for as long as it takes to unload, to drain septic systems. Roto-Rooters is parked there usually at least a few times a month, and then there are the suppliers. There are a number of different trucks, and a lot of times you can't get by. So, I mean, if you're having people coming left all the time, there's going to be a lot of, I think, stoppage there. Sometimes you just have to sit and wait for the driver to come back and move their trucks out of the way. Also, those cars, I guess, those, I believe, are workers at Bucatino's, so you've got a lot of traffic of the workers coming and going. I believe that I don't know, but the workers at Bucatino's are also living in one of these houses here, so they're coming and going all the time as well. It's a small little road, so I think you're just asking for problems. Also, I don't know if any of you are familiar, but crossing 28A, there's no way for pedestrians to get from Beaman Lane over to the bike path, which is one of the main features in Falmouth. And for people who are coming, if they're coming there for, a short period of time, if they're tourists, whatnot, they're going to want to use the bike lane. I put a request in for sidewalks there, and in the meeting of June 26, 2023, the Traffic Advisory Committee looked at this request, and I understand that 28A is a state road, and the state sent it back to Falmouth and said that Falmouth would have to put in sidewalks in order for them to put in a crosswalk there. So for anybody who's wanting to go across to the bike path, you have to go either the crosswalk from in front of Bucatino's on 151. You have to walk all the way down to past Dean's, which is a little shopping center there, and you have to cross way down there, and you have to come across, and then you have to come back And so it's very confusing. So the Traffic Advisory Committee, I believe, sent it to the Select Board, and then I don't know what happened after that. So my question is this something that's going to be taken up again? Are there sidewalks that are going to be put in? Is there going to be a crosswalk there? Because it's a very dangerous intersection. I don't know if any of you are aware of it. There's a lot of traffic there. And if you're going to have trucks blocked, cars trying to get around, cars from Beaman Lane trying to get around, workers at Bucatino's trying to get by as well, it's going to be a mess. And, yeah, so that's my main concern. I just had a couple other questions. And I'm new to Falmouth, so I'm not quite sure. From what I understand, there's a lot of housing shortage in Falmouth. So I'm wondering, sort of, is this a common type of building for 1-month stays? Because I don't know, what are the type of people who are going to use this facility? Are they going to be tourists? Are they going to be workers? Are they going to be like short-term residents who can't find, long-term housing, and so they're going to be living month to month? I'm just curious. Also, yeah, those are my main concerns, actually. So I'd be happy if the board could take a look at some of these questions, and also let me know what happened to my request for a crosswalk.
So you'd have to direct that to the selectman, ma'am. It's not a zoning issue, but I would
Okay.
follow up with the selectman about that question.
Okay. But I think this is something that the board should take into account, because if there are people who are coming there, on a month-to-month basis, they're probably going to want to be, crossing there. And so I think an accident is waiting to happen. Thank you.
One question. I didn't hear your name.
Janet Chakarian.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comment?
Hi, I'm Patty Cusack on 16 Beaman Lane, and I've provided you all a copy of the letter in response that was sent. And to my neighbors' concerns as well, I share them. There is significant traffic, and by adding 6 or 7 or 10 or 12 more parking spaces, you are inviting potential accidents. 151 and 28A has a tremendous amount of traffic now, and it is a very small lane. My other concern is, while I appreciate the effort to put brackets around the length of stay, if someone is staying for 30 days, what is really their incentive to follow a left-hand turn sign? How would that be monitored? And if someone breaks the rules, they're leaving in a few weeks anyway, and there's another person in. I think that it's a great concern. I would be wanting to question how these tenants are going to be background checked. I think I expressed at the last meeting that there has been concern with previous tenants there. And with a 30-day turnaround with 7 different units, it's significant opportunity for monitoring very closely, and previous history indicates that hasn't happened. My last point that I'd like to request is of Mr. Finneran. At the last meeting, you indicated that you knew the family, the father of the applicants, very well, and it seemed as though there was a strong relationship there. So my request would be that you abstain from the vote. Thank you.
Other public comment?
Hi, my name is Mary Kerwin, and I'm a neighbor. And today, I just have a question. I'm very concerned. I've heard Mr. Finneran say the last time, and I heard him just say it again, they could put 17 in. So now I'm confused, and I need to be educated, perhaps. Somebody could educate me, because I thought when you came before the Zoning Board of Appeals, we're looking for some sort of a special variance or permission to expand or change the use of the property, a non-conforming use. You're looking for some sort of a zoning relief. I could be wrong. This is not my area of expertise. But if that's so, they're asking for 7, and Mr. Finneran, you said they could get 17.
Yes.
So and if they could throw in 17, they don't have to have a variance for that? I just want to...
You get 10 units, or 5 units for the first 1,000 feet, and you can get...
Under what, though? Like, in other words...
Commercial accommodations. I mean, that applies...
Actually, section 11.2B, under minimum lot size.
But, so this is a
Paragraph 3.
commercially zoned property is what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So then, technically, just because we're neighbors and we don't understand this. So if you say that they could put in 17, is what you're saying, would they still have to come before you, though, to seek a variance?
Well, it's not a variance.
It's a special permit.
Special
If it went
permit.
beyond the 7, let's say the board approved tonight, the requested 7 units, if he wanted to come back, if the applicant wanted to come back, say, well, now I want to go to 17, he'd be required to come back for the board to modify the special permit again.
But how do we come up with a number that he could be asking for 17? And are we now talking about affordable housing? Are we now into the realm of, are we talking about 40B?
Commercial accommodations.
Commercial accommodation.
Like a motel.
The existing short-term rentals, rooming house, hotels, commercial accommodations.
Okay, so, and I'm ignorant about this stuff. So if they wanted to put in 40B, could they, or is that not even permissible in a commercial zone?
They could come back with an application for a 40B if they wanted to, anywhere in the town.
Okay, so they could then put in a different sort of housing, like apartments, say?
Yes.
And again, is it limited by numbers?
It would be an entirely different process at that point.
Okay. So the process that they've gone, or chose to go through then, right? Because they could have chosen to gone a different route, but instead we're going by commercial zoning?
No, it has to. It's a commercial.
We're here with what the application is, and this is
Okay.
for commercial accommodations.
And it's, in these rules that you speak of, like the 17, has to do with what you're saying he's applied for under a hotel?
It's a classification called the commercial accommodations.
Okay.
It's based on the existing zoning bylaw requires certain number of parking spots, certain lot size. The size of the lot determines essentially how many units they can put in. There are other requirements in terms of the septic capacity has to pass state regulations and so on. But what he's asking for today is 7 commercial accommodations, which he is allowed to do, or allowed to request, based on the lot size and based on the referrals that we have.
Can I read the definition of it?
Yes, please do.
The definition of commercial accommodations in the zoning bylaw is rental to transient guests, including boarding, lodging, tourist home, motel, hotel, or inn. And it's an allowed use by special permit in a B2 zoning district.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I appreciate that.
I'd just like to address the comment. I'm quite familiar with the Jarvises as well. There are many restaurants around town. I mean, I'm familiar with the Adams business. I've done business with them before. I'm not going to recuse myself from any case concerning any and every business in this town that I happen to frequent or use. It would make no sense and would eliminate my ability considerably, and I
That's fine.
will not recuse myself.
That's fine. Other comments, questions, or follow-up from the board, or any additional public comment? All right. The applicant would like to follow up on anything that was requested?
I just, to my neighbor's question or comment, I did bring up that, you know, by the rules, we could ask for more. The reason I was bringing that up, and I think Mark was, Mr. Finneran was reiterating that, is that I'm attempting, one, to, you know, make my property viable, but at the same time respect the neighbors and respect the community. Could do a 40B. There's lots of other options out there trying to do something that is within the rules that have been already created and following a process. I think 40B would be a tough thing for people to swallow. It would be definitely a different project. And in order for it to work, it would have to be much more intensive. And I'm attempting to do something that is as unintensive as possible, but still makes sense for me as a property owner. And I hope that I've conveyed that to the neighborhood. I hope that my brother and I have conveyed that to the board.
Board, like to have a little discussion on this before we take any action?
Sure.
Let's start off.
This is a very difficult case, but as I just pointed out, this is a B2 zoning district, and commercial accommodations are an allowed use in the district by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. But I note, if you look at that plan that's up on the wall, what you see there is a very congested neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that, in my opinion, is very poorly laid out, but I don't think it was ever really laid out by anybody to have a comprehensive plan there. It just was built as everybody went along. And the relationship of the buildings, the restaurant, and the other buildings on the other side of Beaman Lane, and the narrowness of Beaman Lane just create a lot of problems in this neighborhood, but they're not really Mr. Adams' problems. Some of them are generated by the restaurant, which is across the street, and he's not really responsible for those. I'm also impressed by the fact that he's bringing forth a plan for only 7 units. Now, if he were here asking for 17 units, as Mr. Finneran says he could apply for, and I don't know whether if he could apply for even more, but we have to look at the zoning bylaw and make a determination if this site is suitable for the proposed use. And because of the limitation on units at 7, I think that's in favor of this application, that this is not an attempt that we often see to max out a particular piece of land.
Good summation. I think I can't speak for you, obviously, but I would think the applicant/developer is going to have to spend a fairly substantial amount of money. I don't think you want to have your new properties damaged by monthly renters, so I would hope that, as you heard from your abutters, that you can do as much due diligence as you can. The signage will help. I think you're trying to do everything that, quite honestly, has probably gone wrong in that section. I would hope, again, that you have maybe, every few months you get together with maybe the owner of Bucatino, and again, mention what's going on with the people that live on the street, and if there's anything that the two parties can help to reduce the traffic or fix the road in that area, get people to go out onto the left, as some of the folks had mentioned. In a way, I think it's a little bit of a betterment, quite honestly, of the site and the way it's been left or managed. So I appreciate the 7 units, to Mr. Duffy's comments also.
Thank you.
Tony?
I have to agree. I only see this as improving the conditions there. You are trying to maximize the site, and I think that's a good thing. I think you're going to try and manage the traffic flow, at least out of your property. Very little you can do to manage the Bucatino property, other than to maintain a friendly relationship and try and do the best you can. But I only see this as an improvement to that area, particularly eliminating the catering business. So I believe it's an improvement.
I agree with the rest of the board. The catering business, getting rid of that's going to improve the situation dramatically. and can't be held responsible for the trucks of Bucatinos and,
So I'm very concerned about the traffic. It's very congested, as I know everyone on the board has been out there can see. Very sympathetic to the concerns and the comments of the abutters concerning that. But again, as the board has indicated, a lot of this is generated by someone who's not the applicant. I'd like to just float to get a little consensus of the board about the requirement of a management plan from the applicant, addressing the issue about parking, guest conduct, lease terms, make sure that it's incorporated as, if this is approved, a condition that the stays are not less than 1 month, as the applicant indicated that's now going to do, ensuring that the applicant will comply with any historical restrictions or terms regarding your own small house before altering or changing. Those would be some of the things that I would be looking for as conditions if this is going to be approved.
Also a sign off of the planning board on the parking.
Yes, that's the parking and the location. This is just, a situation where I think when the zoning lot lines were drawn, this was not contemplated or laid out properly.
Right.
So, but we have to apply the law as we have it, not necessarily the way we want it, or we can't substitute our judgment for it. How would the board like to proceed? Unless there's additional discussion we need to have.
No, I just echo everything that's said by everyone else, and, I mean, I'm familiar with, again, Mr. Adams. I mean, if he can build the United States Embassy, I mean, I'm pretty sure he can do a decent job at this. And I think, again, as everyone's, it's a modest use of the property. It could be much more expanded. I mean, I don't have any problem with it, and I don't see how we could.
I would close the hearing and move to a vote.
I was just going to suggest, the other possibility would be for the applicant to have a conversation with the building commissioner. The building commissioner does have the authority to determine front yards, and where there's frontage on 2 streets, that could be a potential avenue for the applicant to have the other street considered to be the technical front, in which case the parking would not be in the front yard. But I think also typically, the planning board has accepted that if you have an existing parking lot, that you're not putting a new parking lot in a front yard, so I don't think that's going to be a limiting factor for them.
The planning board kicks it back on that issue. Is the board comfortable allowing administrative approval by the zoning administrator?
Yeah, and I think you have to keep in mind that technically, this would be a corner lot, and it has 2 front yards, and it would be unwise to consider 28A as the front yard. You're asking for trouble.
But that's not our initial call, that's somebody else's
The
call,
building commissioner's determine. I think, do we want to cross the bridge if we get there?
if we get there.
I would say administratively, we'll let Noreen finalize it,
It wouldn't be the largest thing we put on our plate.
So there was a motion, I believe, and I'm sorry I didn't catch who made it. I believe it was you, Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion on closing. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing is closed. No more testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Motion to
Second that.
approve the conditions. Scott, second by Mark. Findings.
Property is located at 15 Beaman Lane in North Falmouth. It's owned by Starbuck Holdings LLC. B2 zoning district. They're applying for a special permit under section 249.5A to renovate existing dwelling for 5 units and 1 unit in the cottage of commercial accommodations. Commercial accommodations are permitted by special permit in a B2 zoning district. There was a previous zoning Board of Appeals decision on the property. It's decision 101-01, that's the year 2001, to allow an addition to the catering business at 5 North Falmouth Highway. That business had a North Falmouth Highway address, but that special permit will become irrelevant following the issuance of a subsequent special permit. The property is 27,405 square feet in a B2 zoning district, which requires a minimum of 40,000 square feet. Frontage is 214 feet, and that's measured along Beaman Lane, and a district which requires 200 square feet, so it conforms. It's a private right-of-way in this particular area. The lot coverage by structure is 11.6%. It will increase to 12.4% in a district which allows 40%. So it's way under the allowed lot coverage by structure. Its lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving is 24%. It will be increased to 32% in a district which allows 70%. So it's way under the allowed lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving. The setbacks do not present any particular nonconformities. The height of the building, I don't have what it is, but they're not changing. There's no additional height to the building. We have references from the engineering department asking us to impose the usual conditions on stormwater runoff. The Board of Health has issued a letter saying that the septic system is satisfactory. And I'll actually take a look at it. Saying the existing signage, the existing septic flow for this property is 855 gallons per day for the caterer, main dwelling and cottage. The proposed project eliminates the existing catering facility from the site and instead provides additional dwelling units. The overall proposed development results in residential units totaling 7 bedrooms with a flow of 770 gallons per day. The proposed septic system will need Board of Health approval for the required setback reduction from the proposed leaching area to the wetlands. And I believe they have told us that they have a plan for approval from the Conservation Commission for that. The Conservation Commission has informed us that in response to a request for determination of applicability, that it is not necessary that the applicant file a notice of intent for any work to be conducted on the property, although the property is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission because of the proximity to wetlands. The Water Department has notified us that each unit will need independent water service and meter. The assessors have no comment. The Fire Department has no comments. The Planning Board has notified us that the property may need a special permit from the Planning Board for parking spaces in the front yard. That's to be determined. And the, okay, going on, we have multiple letters in the file, and there were multiple opposition testimonies by abutters at the public hearing. With respect for the conditions, a commercial accommodation is defined as property rented to transient guests, including boarding, lodging, tourist home, motel, hotel, or inn, and this falls generally within that category. Commercial accommodations are allowed by special permit in a B2 zoning district per section 246.2B of the zoning bylaw. Under section 249.5, commercial accommodations with private cooking and housekeeping, which this proposal includes, is allowed if customary if customary to guest units in the town. When we've been informed by our zoning administrator that there are similar units around town with that accommodation for guests. And it will not change the nature of the property. It remains a commercial accommodation and not a permanent residence. As far as the special permit goes, we make a determination that the site is adequate for the proposed use based upon the number of units, 7 units, that the applicant has applied for. It's suitable for the proposed use based, again, upon the number 7 units. There is an acknowledged traffic flow problem, but most of it is not necessarily the fault of the developer or the applicant, and he has agreed to take steps to help mitigate it. There'll be no adverse effects on the visual characteristics of the neighborhood because there's really not any changes being made to the buildings. There's adequate sewage as defined by or as determined by the Board of Health. There are public utilities, and there's no impact on affordable housing.
Any additional findings that need to be added?
Okay. I was just going to mention the 1-month duration, but that...
That'll be a condition.
Yep, condition, yep.
Okay, so include testimony was from the applicant that he was willing and now going to be doing that. Additional, Noreen? Conditions?
Planning board, for the parking, stormwater runoff, water service, as, again, I'm referring now to the comments that we've received, that the property must remain a commercial accommodation for transient guests or short-term rentals. It cannot be used as a permanent rental or permanent rental housing. If there be any increase over the number of units, which is presently identified as 7, the applicant must come back to the board for approval or get other approval to increase the density. Those are the ones that I've noted.
Compliance with appropriate numbering of units per the bylaw, make sure that
Yes.
when somebody calls, we know where they're calling from. Don't make this yet, I just want to float it by the rest of the board. The applicant shall submit a management plan to the zoning administrator to address assignment of parking spaces to guests, guest conduct, submit a model lease or rental agreement. No storage of boats or unregistered motor vehicles on the property.
Right.
Left-hand turn only?
Left, yep.
Can we make the management plan a condition of the special permit and specifically say in there that it can be enforced by the building commissioner?
Like he wants to.
Can be, and we can't tell him to do it, but
I think they can only address violations. So I think
Well-
if there's a tenancy issue, it would have to be addressed with the owner, or if there's something outrageous, it would be the police. But the building commissioner cannot enforce on private individuals that are staying.
well, I'm not necessarily concerned about that, but, I mean, there's been a number of, I haven't seen this management plan, which is kind of beyond our scope, but nevertheless.
It was required, though, with other applicants. That's
Okay,
only
fine,
before.
but I would like there to be something in this special permit that acknowledges the management plan and puts the building commissioner and anybody else on notice that if there's a blatant violation of it, it's not to be just ignored.
Get some language?
I was hoping you did. Maybe we just work on that.
I'll get to work.
Construction hours and keeping everything on site.
Yep, absolutely.
I didn't hear that one.
Construction hours, things to remain on site. It's a private road, we don't have a lot of jurisdiction. We can just, yeah, we can certainly.
But he's got to keep it off site because it's already bad enough as it is.
And he's got plenty of room.
The minimum of the 1-month duration?
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yep.
I want the 1 month. The applicant testified that he's doing that. That should be in there. Anything else, Maureen? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those symbolically side to the neighbors and say no. So 4-1, the application has been approved.
Thank you.
I will turn the gavel back over to our chair.
Okay, now we got Alma Road.
Yes.
All right, next up, we have, I have to look at the name, Calantuoni, 15 Alma Road.
Do you guys need a few minutes or anything?
What?
Do you guys need a few minutes? I'm ready to go, but I just want to make sure you guys are good.
Yeah.
James is saying we're good. Okay.
Refer to other members of the board.
Just making sure.
All right, let me get the file here.
Oh, okay, good. You couldn't, you probably couldn't hear
There's
it.
another Mr. Clower. right.
Last one, Frank.
Yep, I know.
You're doing good.
Okay, this is application 101 of 2024. Paul Colantuoni has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4 of the Code of Falmouth, known as the Falmouth zoning bylaw, to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming single-family dwelling exceeding 20% lot coverage by structure. The property is located at 15 Alma Road in Falmouth. For details, the zoning district is RC. Again, it's a special permit under 240-10.2A and 1040-11.3A4 to raise and rebuild the non-conforming single-family dwelling and exceed lot coverage by structure. Flood zone is noted as Zone X. The existing single-family 4-bedroom dwelling and shed cover 1,128 square feet. The proposed single-family dwelling, 4-bedroom, and garage, which is attached garage, will be 1,935 square feet. The lot is 8,022 square feet in a district which currently requires a 40,000 square foot lot minimum size. Street frontage is 95 feet in a district that requires 100 feet of minimum lot frontage, so there's a nonconformity there. Alma Road is a public right-of-way as it passes the subject property. Lot coverage by structure is currently 14.1%. It will be increased to 24.1%. The limit is 20%. By special permit, we are allowed to go up to 25%. The worksheet that's submitted notes that the average lot coverage by structure in the district is 20.04%. Lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving is 27.8%. It will be increased to 34.5% in a district where the limit is 40%, so it will be within that limit. As far as the setbacks are concerned, we note that the structure is 21.2 feet from Alma Road in a district which requires 25 feet, and the other dimensions are conforming, but the nonconformity is the setback from the street. The height of the building, I don't know what it currently is, but it'll be 29.2% when it's finished. The engineering department in its referral has noted that the applicant must apply for a driveway permit and confirm that the driveway parking area as shown on the plan is impervious surface. There's also noted that we impose the usual stormwater requirements, that all stormwater be contained on the subject property, and we note in the decision, if we grant, that the erosion and sediment control provisions be applied. The property is on the Falmouth sewer, so a 4-bedroom is allowed. Conservation has no comment. The Water Department suggests an upgrade to 1 inch. Building Commissioner says no. The Planning Board says no. And that's it, Mr. Clower.
Take it away, Kev.
Thank you. Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Clower. For our final hearing this evening, I'll be representing Paul and Karen Colantuoni, the owners of 15 Alma Road, both of whom are here with us tonight. We're also joined by Henry Arnotto, who is the architect on this particular project. Paul and Karen are seeking permission to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming dwelling on this property. So 15 Alma Road is located at what I would call the northern terminus of Falmouth Heights. The lot's just over 8,000 square feet. It's in the residential C zoning district. It's not in a flood zone, and it is on the Little Pond Sewer District. Presently, there's a 4-bedroom single-family dwelling, which is not conforming to front yard setback at 21.2, where 25 is required, otherwise conforming to setback and lot coverage requirements. The applicants have owned this property for the last 12 years. They're looking to make this the primary residence, and the dwelling requires some significant repairs and upgrades. So they made the determination to raise and rebuild the existing structure. So with the proposed plans, the non-conforming setback would be eliminated. It's going to improve from 21.2 to 26 feet. Will comply with all other setback requirements as well. The lot coverage by structure would be 24.1, which is allowable by special permit. The bedroom count will remain the same, which is 4, which is same as is current, which is what's allowed by the Little Pond Sewer District. The existing ridge height's about 20 feet, and they're proposing 29 feet 2 7/8 inches, which is well below the 35 feet that's allowed. Despite the elimination of the nonconformity, this does still require a special permit under 240-10.2A and 11.3A4. So pursuant to 240-10.2A, pre-existing nonconforming structures may be changed by special permit, provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what exists. Asked to consider the standards of 240-12.1E and whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Here, there's no new nonconformity created, and the existing nonconforming setback is eliminated. To avoid repetition, I'm going to jump to the standards of 240-11.3A4 because there's a lot of overlap there. Under that section of the zoning bylaw, lot coverage by structure exceeding 20% may be allowed by this board. Once you consider the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, the effects of shadow, the impacts on views and vistas from public ways, and the effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. In preparing the lot comparison worksheet, you can see that the house is very close to the average footprint, and the dwelling, as designed, is to be in character with the neighborhood. It's very similar in nature and design to the recently approved home at 16 Falmouth Heights Road, just around the corner. There should be no impact to views and vistas and no effect of nitrogen, as there's no increase in bedrooms than it is on the sewer. This project is a significant improvement over the existing conditions, certainly for the homeowners, and doesn't create any new dimensional nonconformities. I'm not aware of any adverse effects, and none that would overbalance the benefits outlined. I don't believe that this is substantially more detrimental than what exists. I believe it meets all the requirements of 240-10.2A, 11.3A4, and 240-12.1E, and I'd be happy to address any questions the board may have. Otherwise, I would ask that you grant the special permit, and we can maybe get out of here at a pretty reasonable time.
And I checked the score when I was down there, and it was 0-0.
I haven't looked yet. I have a DVR.
I had a minute. Mark, do you have any questions?
No, I actually couldn't find the stake in the southwest corner, but with my Achilles, I wasn't climbing over the fence, and it was so wet I wasn't walking around, so we'll let that one go. And other than that, certainly is a needed improvement. They should have plenty of breathing room now, but it's kind of going in the direction that the neighborhood's going in. Well, I have no other comment.
Scott?
Just to clean up, where you described briefly the proposed project, the proposed dwelling will not eliminate the existing nonconformity with a setback of 26 feet.
It will.
It will, but here your verbiage is will not, so. And then this is what, slide 14 for the application. So I just, again, you've said it 3 times, but the 26 feet measurement is to the house, not the 2-foot bump out for the entry. It's hard to make a note of it.
No, it's to the it's right here to the 2-foot bump out to the entry.
Okay. I couldn't see the arrowhead on that, so I just wanted to confirm.
No,
Thank you.
it will be conforming at 26 feet.
Great, thank you. No further questions.
Frank, any questions?
No.
Me either. It's a good project.
It's very nice. It's keeping with the changes. I like the gambrel design. It's still very much feeling like the Heights. It is unfortunate that a lot of very modest homes are going up, but it is a much-needed improvement, so no questions.
Tony?
Significant improvement to the neighborhood. It looks wonderful.
Yeah.
And Nick?
No, looks good.
Don't trash it, right? We'll go to the public, I guess. Everybody else is all set up here
I
to
do
go to the
have one other
public?
comment.
Oh, go for it.
I'm sorry we have to do this one last. You've got Alma, and I'm thinking of Benham Road and dinner, so.
Right?
We keep smelling pizza. We're all set for the public, right?
With a what? It was an 8.2 review, I think, or a 7.8? 7.8 review.
The rings were a 10. Anybody from the public? You're all set. All right?
Motion to close.
Second.
Any discussion before we close? All those are in favor of closing?
Aye.
Motion to approve with conditions?
Second.
There we go. Let's do findings, Frank.
Property's 15 Elmer Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts. Zoning district is RC. They've applied for a special permit under section 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4 of the Falmouth zoning bylaw to raise and rebuild a non-conforming single-family dwelling and exceed lot coverage by structure. Flood zone is designated X. The existing single-family dwelling to be raised contains 4 bedrooms. There's a shed which will be removed, and the total lot coverage is, or footprint is 1,128 square feet. The proposed structure will be a single-family dwelling, it'll be 4 bedrooms, there'll be a garage attached, and the total square footage will be 1,935 square feet. The lot is 8,022 square feet in a district which requires 40,000. The street frontage is 95 feet in a district which requires 100. Where it was a public right-of-way as it goes by. The existing lot coverage by structure is 14.1%. The proposed structure will be 24.1%, which exceeds the limit of 20, and the special permit will cover that. The average in the neighborhood per the worksheet is 20.04%. Lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving is currently 27.8%. It will increase to 34.5%. The limit of the zoning bylaw is 40%, so this will conform. The current non-conforming setback, which is the distance from the street to the front of the house, is currently 21.2 feet. It will increase to 26 feet and will now be conforming. The height of the proposed structure will be 29.2 feet, which is within the 35 feet allowed by the Falmouth zoning bylaw. Again, with respect to comments from departments, engineering has noted that a driveway permit may be required, or I guess is required, and wants confirmation that the gravel parking area shown on the plan is a pervious surface. They've also made the comment about stormwater runoff being contained on the site and for erosion and sediment control during construction. There's a sewer. 4 bedrooms is the allowed maximum, and this is okay. Conservation has no comment. Water recommends an upgrade to 1-inch service. Building and Planning Board both passed on comments. Now, with respect to zoning bylaw, section 240-10.2A, non-conforming structures, we make the finding that the proposal is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. With respect to the conditions for, or the criteria for a special permit, we make the finding that the site is adequate for the proposed structure, the site is suitable for the proposed structure, there's no impact on traffic flow and safety, no impact on the neighborhood visual characteristics, views or vistas. Sewage disposal is adequate as evidenced by the presence of the sewer. There's adequate utilities and no impact on affordable housing. As for the 25% lot coverage allowed for structures, we note that the size and height is relative to other properties in the neighborhood. There's no shadows on adjacent properties. Views and vistas from the public ways are not impaired, and there's no impact on coastal nitrogen impact on coastal embayments because of the presence of the sewer. Yeah.
Conditions?
Oh, I also note, no letters, no letters, no opposition.
I read in there for conditions, it says something about condition the large gravel area?
Making sure it's pervious.
Yeah.
That was
That's it,
part of the driveway permit.
All right. And removal of septic tank, is that a condition?
I think per plan, because the plan refers to it as being removed,
Okay.
so.
Conditions are just
already
work
hitched up
hours?
That should have been done.
It is hitched to the sewer, but the plan indicates the system was abandoned but not removed.
So conditions are per plans, work hours? The septic is per plan.
Equipment to be off the street or work with the police department, come up with a traffic plan.
There's plenty of space.
Anything else, Noreen, you can think of?
So engineering has also required soil erosion and sediment control to protect downstream stormwater system. They've asked for a demarcated limit of work following the town's soil erosion and sediment control standard conditions. Regarding the gravel parking area, just for the applicants and for the specificity of the decision, what will record is the area that's actually pervious, and that the gravel area will remain, there's pervious area with the paved driveway, but that the gravel area will remain pervious, so that it can't be paved in the future, because that would exceed the lot coverage allowance. And we're not replacing the shed. The bonus room would remain open, obviously, so that you don't have an extra bedroom. And I think that's it.
Remain 4-bedroom.
That's it? We got it all?
Boy, I hope so.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Thank you all very
Great
much.
project, enjoy.
Thank you.
All right, moving along.
Tabling minutes.
Then you're next.
Zoning administrator is tabling updates.
Nice.
You
I'll
see me
I'll
every
table
week,
board discussion
so,
then.
Yeah.
Anybody want to table board updates?
Sure.
And future agenda items. We have next Thursday off.
You do, you get to hopefully enjoy Thanksgiving. Not- yeah.
4th of July and Thanksgiving and Halloween. Wow, we got it all.
All right, and Mark, let's go.
Motion to leave.
All those in favor of adjournment? Aye.
December 5th, next meeting?
Next meeting will be December 5th at 6 PM. And happy
Happy Thanksgiving.